different. And so what this meeting is designed to do is to just identify the things that we plan on doing in the next few years, things that are interest to us, things we're concerned with. In some cases, we don't know what we don't know, and we're looking for some help and guidance on what we should be doing. And our feeling has always been here in Arlington that it's a partnership that we're trying to develop. And I know that's a trite phrase that's been used often in the past, but we really believe that in here in our government units. We look at you as partners, the staff that do work for us, the partners, the contractors we do have today here working in the county, really not only take responsibility but ownership for the projects they work on. I see some of you in the audience today who have worked with us in the past, and I probably could attest to that. That's the way we work. So we're somewhat different than the federal sector in many ways, and I think it's for the better. What we're not going to do today, let me tell you about that, is that we're not going to talk about anything where we have something in procurement, where there's an RFP on the street, because that would then violate those rules. So we're not going to get into those discussions. But we're going to be talking about things that are near and dear to us. We're going to talk at a high level. We're going to talk about some of the initiatives that we want to go, and we're going to try to drill down and give you some tidbits of things that we really want to have some guidance on. And then at the end of this, we'd like to have hold your questions until the end, and we'll have some general questions, and you're all free to ask as many questions as you like, and we'll give you as best answers we can. And then after that, my directors will spin off into different portions of the room, and from that, you'll be able to ask them questions specifically and about areas that they're interested in, and arrange meetings, if you'd like to pursue it further in discussions. So that's the idea behind today's session. We'll hope to keep it brief, to the point. So with that, I guess we're going to talk a little bit about, I'm taking off on the first thing about the organizational structure. Again, we're a county government, but we have a division between the county and the schools, and the schools have a elected board, we have a county board. The county board, our county board is a group of 5 individuals who serve and act as a board of directors. Each year, one of them is elected chairman, and they provide guidance to the county manager. We're a county manager form of government, and many of you probably already know this, but if you don't, let me just tell you how that works. In effect, the county manager is hired by the majority of the board and can only be removed by a majority of the board. Now, what's really good about the structure we have is that the board we have really acts, even though we're elected officials, act as a board of directors. And so they don't make an investment just as the investment of the day. They look at it as long-term investment. So the first year I was here, the board chairman was Jay Fassett, and he invested in technology. He believed that we needed to enhance our technology. When that year ended, the next board chairman was Christopher Zimmerman, who's still on the board, and Chris said, you know what, for me, it's transportation, but also don't forget about technology. Chris was replaced by Barbara Favola, who's now going to be a state senator and leave our board, but she came in, she said, you know, for me, the most important thing in this year is health and human services, but don't forget we have to invest in transportation, and don't forget about technology. And that's so critical, is when you have that type of support at the elected level, it makes your life easier as a staff member in this type of form of government. So all the money comes into the county, and we're, to be honest, and I almost shudder to say this, we're a $1 billion industry. That's how much money we bring in. And we, thankfully, do quite well. We're a very educated community. We're a very young community. I think about 34% of the community is under the age of 40. It's a community, it's a bedroom community, as you know, in many cases of Washington, D.C., and so many of the key officials in the federal government live in Arlington. So you have a situation where the superintendent of the schools will be talking to the parents at Science Focus, and the Secretary of Education, Arnie Duncan, is in the audience because his son and daughter go to Science Focus. So it's that type of environment we have. So we have people who really understand how things are working on the federal level and look at what we're doing on the local level, and they take the lessons that we've learned here and apply them. We've gained a lot of recognition in the last few years for the things we've done, and that have happened to us. 9/11 certainly is a day that lives with us continually, and many of the things you'll hear about today are related somewhat still to how we are planning to protect this community and preserve this community. But we've done a lot of amazing things. In a technology area, for instance, we've been just recognized as by Digital Counties as one of the top 10 counties in the United States in terms of the things we've done in technology. And I've been in many places, and to see the things that we've achieved in the short time that we have done is truly remarkable. So I where organizations is recognized as can do. At the same time, we have a school board, elected school board, and they share in the revenue coming in. Right now, the distribution is 42% goes to the county, 48% of the revenue goes to the schools. And once that distribution takes place, the schools go through a process of determining their priorities. We do not oversee their priorities, so that they have many technical priorities themselves that they're working on. And they are, again, separate and not present in this meeting. And this discussion will not talk about them, but just talk about our particular organization. Given that, well, how are we structured? And so I think the next slide is, yep. What we try to do, technology governance, there are many models of technology governance, one of which, of course, is the committee type of governance. Well, we've migrated from that to more of a concentrated type of governance. And what we do is that myself and the chief financial officer work as a team. And what we do is we look at particular technology initiatives, and what we do is we have a sponsor committee that we create. And that sponsor committee is myself and her, and a member of the county manager's office, and also the particular department heads who are involved in those efforts. So if it's a health and human services effort, we have the director of health and human services sitting on that board. If it's a public safety area and area of police, the police chief sits on it. If it's something to do with libraries, the librarian sits on it. If it has something to do with revenue collection, the treasurer, who's an elected official, sits on that board. And what our board does, and this is important, is they are intimately involved in the development of the project. And so that sponsor committee sits on top of a steering committee, a working committee of staff and contractual partners who are working together to ensure the project is moving along on time, as scheduled, and within budget. And we hold them accountable. And so what that does is it creates this accountability where basically we're managing projects, and they are projects that are not lost in the world of business, of the normal day of the business. We're taking these business leaders, bringing them out of whatever they're doing, whether it's the police chief who's dealing with police issues or the treasurer of the county who's dealing with revenue collection issues. We bring them into a meeting and we talk technology. And we say, this technology is going to enable your business process. And the critical thing here, even though I mentioned the word technology first, is that we truly have adopted the concept of business drives what we do. We just don't go do something because we'll build it and we hope they come. We do it because there's a business reason we're doing it. And before we start any project, and you'll hear a lot about that today, we make sure we identify what are the business values to be achieved. If you were to be stopped by somebody in the community who says, why are we spending X amount of dollars on this when we could be spending on that, we have to be able to answer that question from a business perspective. We have to say, we're doing this because it's going to do this for you. And if we can't say that, and we can't measure that, we talk about measurements all the time in technology, what are the performance measurements? We really take that to heart, and we make sure that that's part and parcel of any initiatives that we start off with. So that's how we govern. And so to govern, the first thing you need to do is to understand what is our architecture. What are the things we're doing? Are we an open source shop? Are we a Microsoft shop? Are we going to the cloud or whatever? So to start that discussion, let me introduce Ajit Arya, who's the Deputy CEO, Chief Technology Officer for the county.
Thanks, Jack. Good morning and welcome again. I'm Ajit Arya, Deputy CIO for the county. DTS is not a very large organization. We are about 100 in strength, including both employees and contract resources. Ratio is about 3:1. The way we have organized the department is we have 4 divisions and an office of the CIO, which we call OCIO. OCIO has the responsibility to provide leadership for the county-wide technology investments and adoption. In addition, key functions are operational oversight, administrative and financial management for the department, as well as technology planning, strategies, and portfolio management for our IT investments. Enterprise Computing Services Division, it's focused on providing all kinds of customer support, help desk operations, field support, mobile device and desktop managements are all within this division. This division also is very instrumental in the evaluation and adoption of new consumer technologies in the workplace, such as mobile phones, iPads, video conferencing, chatting, and those kind of things. Network services, their focus is mainly on managing the back-end technology infrastructure for the county, and that includes county's fiber and wireless networks, data centers, hosting services, identity management, email management, and most importantly, information and network security. Core business applications is primarily focused on managing solutions for enterprise back office functions such as payroll and HR, financial management, procurement, vendor management, accounts payable, assessments and revenue collection, and those are the big back office applications they support. Applications and architecture division is focused on enterprise data management, including structured and unstructured, applications architecture, custom software development, COTS package implementation, web content management, collaboration, and intranet and counties website management. So those are the major functions in that division. Next, please. Now, let's talk about where we have invested our technology investments. Over the past 10 years, the county has made significant investments in technology. One key investment county made last year was constructing a county-owned data center facility. It is a very modern facility. It is 3,600 square feet and can hold up to 90 racks. It is utilizing many green energy efficient features such as cold aisle cooling and free air cooling. And it demonstrates that we are really serious about the green IT in the county. Next. When it comes to network and infrastructure, we are a Cisco shop. Most of the servers in our data centers are Dell servers. We also use Dell's SCSI storage management devices. Identity management is using Active Directory. We are mainly Microsoft server shop. So we have Microsoft operating system on the servers, including as well as net backup and semantic antivirus are the standard features on the servers. We have been using VMware for many years now. In all, we have about 150 physical standalone servers, as well as about 250 virtual servers. So we are fairly advanced in using VMware in our place. End user computing environment is fairly typical Microsoft desktops, and mobile device usage is on the rise in the county. We support iPhone and Android, so we don't support BlackBerry. We have found many iPad applications in the county, so that is gaining momentum. Our email is Outlook, and this year we moved our email system from on-premise to Office 365 Microsoft in the cloud. So that's what we did this year. Computer Associate Service Desk system is our primary help desk tool for managing trouble tickets and those things. And we have invested in Microsoft System Center for configuration and operational management of the desktops and server environment. We are also using WhatsApp Gold and SolarWinds for network monitoring. Application development, we are not into developing large and complex applications, but there is plenty of small application development going on in the county. We are primarily a .NET shop. Any development in-house is primarily not .NET. As well as commercial packages, we prefer having a .NET platform. So that's what our preference is. Mobile application, we have recently started developing. Core business application, our core back office applications used to be on the mainframe. Over a period of 5-6 years, last year we were successful in retiring our mainframe, IBM mainframe system, and this year we have dismantled that. So all the parts, they have been dismantled. So we are totally now in a modern environment. Our main ERP system is Oracle E-Business Suite, which provides the procurement, financial management, and HR payroll functions, and it is hosted off-site with Oracle On Demand in Austin, Texas. Our assessment and revenue collection, which is another key system we have, is using Gentex software from Fast Enterprise. Please. Content management, this area covers records management, document management, collaboration, website content management, and those things. Our key platform for enterprise records management is Highlands on-base software. Our main website, www.arlingtonva.com, arlingtonva.us, is using web content management system from Percussion, and it also uses Google Search Appliance for search capabilities. We have lately started using WordPress for micro website development. We have invested in SharePoint 2010 for our intranet collaboration and document management capabilities. When it comes to deciding about where shall we really put our systems, we always think cloud first. But we are always prudent to evaluate the cost benefit of doing cloud. We simply don't want to do cloud just because it is a trend. Recently, we did our email in cloud, but we decided SharePoint 2010 not in the cloud because of the challenges it was offering to us in terms of the cost and technical challenges for integration with on-premise things we wanted to do. So for time being, SharePoint is on-premise, but in future, if the model improves, then we may move to cloud. So we always think cloud first. Open source, we are very open to open source. Only lately, we have started doing that one. WordPress is an open source software, and we are using it for microsite developments. For mobile application development, we have started experimenting with the Sencha Touch and PhoneGap open source software to develop HTML5 web applications for Android and iPhone devices. We are a very, very dynamic organization. Things change here constantly. And lately, the focus on mobility has significantly increased, both for our internal as well as for external environment. I would like to invite Kristen to talk about more.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kristen Cornell, and I am the Director of the Applications and Architecture Division within DTS. I've been with DTS for a little bit more than 6 months now, and I'm very excited to be here. So mobility. Mobility is a critical piece of an increasingly complex and integrated enterprise. And our strategy with mobility is to treat it as central and not an afterthought to application development. So we don't treat it as in addition to or before or after any other kind of deployment we do. Rather, we treat all portable devices, whether they're phones or tablets or whatnot, as a primary deployment platform. And our interest is, in doing so, to be able to take advantage of the native functionality that these devices offer, in particular, their location awareness and other emerging features, which allow us opportunities to investigate new levels of engagement with our community, excuse me. So our goal is to develop flexible, targeted applications that are specific to Arlington. So we're looking to really develop niche ideas. We want to be very targeted. We don't want something too broad, but we want to be able to really focus in on a specific information or service or need. We want to align with the county's branding or messaging at any given time. And we also want to leverage the uniqueness of Arlington's data. As Ajit had mentioned, we are proceeding with a platform-independent approach in using Sencha Touch and PhoneGap. We launched earlier this month our first mobile application in both the Android and the iPhone marketplace. And it's an Arlington Prepares application, and it's to assist Arlington community, whether you're a resident or a visitor or a worker here, to prepare or respond in case of an event. We're also in the process of completing our next mobile application, which is to serve as a citizen guide for Arlington residents. Future ideas, we have lots of ideas, no shortage of innovative ideas. We are looking to partner with our Community Housing Planning Development Division. They do a lot of the permitting and inspections for Arlington County. So we have ideas about how we can best display information on permits or zoning inspections, or even the wait service up on the 10th floor. So people, before they come in, if they want to get an idea of how long the wait is, if it's 5 minutes or 2 hours, they'll have a better sense and can manage their time. We're also working with the Department of Environmental Services to investigate a potential demographic tool of Arlington that would be beneficial to residents, to the county, to the media, or whatnot. And one other thing we've also considered is doing a mobile competition to engage the public more intimately with the activities of Arlington County and to also leverage the talent out there. The big challenge we have with our mobile application approach really comes back to data. So we are an environment that it has mixed legacy systems as well as new technology, and we're a distributed integrated system platform. So we're looking to really strengthen and bolster the back end with a service-oriented architecture, with middleware, and with data hubs. Essentially, all of our applications are reliant upon data. Consumers are increasingly consuming and leveraging data in more complex ways, and the expectations for them to access it, to slice it and dice it and analyze it is increasing. So we need to be poised to be able to provide that information to not only ourselves internally, but to externally to our customers. So in addition to the glamorous front end of developing mobile applications that are fun and exciting, equally, or if not more important, we're interested really in bolstering the back end to avail ourselves to provide the service layer and really to provide the independence, the logical independence between the front end applications and the back end data structure sources that really hold our assets. And that will provide us more flexibility to make changes in the long term, but also allow us to reuse that virtual data sets. So that's where we're going from an application perspective. For more on mobility, I want to introduce my colleague, Kevin Dolan.
Thank you. I'm Kevin Dolan, Director of Enterprise Computing. We talk about mobility. Mobility seems like such a small subject to start with. When you consider government, not that long ago, mobility was getting in your car and going to a meeting. The county government was no exception. And in a very short period of time, we've moved from the day-to-day interfacing in a meeting to laptops, to teleworking, to now in the more recent time, even in enhancements in the mobile technology as the iPads, the smartphones. We are finding more and more that we can do greater things. We can save money. We can decrease our dependency on manpower for inspections by enabling mobile devices. So the enhancements that Christanne just spoke about with applications are going to just further that drive, further that hunger for that application. What am I concerned with? I'm concerned with the new introduction of tablets, iPads, smartphones in a secure manner. I'm very concerned that our users have the right tools in their hands, and we are actively moving down that road. This is not something that the county does haphazardly. It is planned, it is funded. It is an effort that we're going to be pursuing now, and it's just going to continue to expand in the years to come. So some of the ongoing efforts, we are goals, as with everything, is we are looking to reduce our dependency on the traditional desktop. We have talked percentages. I don't like to talk percentages, my boss does, but I'm sure that somewhere between my head, what reality is, and his vision of where I should be, will come up with a workable compromise. But nevertheless, it is moving, it is going to happen, and it's going to happen sooner than later. So speaking of PCs and stuff, so you know that really quick, we replace our PC fleet. We keep them prompt, we keep them done in a timely manner, and they're always a very valuable asset to our employees. So when Jack was talking about the potential of a billion-dollar industry, you can think that hardware replacement is a significant amount of effort on our part. So as we move forward to our next PC replacement cycle, which basically happens every year, we are going to consider and be requesting assistance with new innovative ways to maybe replace those desktops, to consider new ways of doing business, or maybe enhance the functionality we already have. That can be anything from a tablet technology to streaming desktops to the workplace to better enabling our teleworkers to perform remotely for both day-to-day operations and the life-health balance, as well as continued continuity of operations. And I think that about covers, at least for now, for mobility. So I'd like to introduce my colleague, Lou Michael, who will take it much deeper. Thank you.
Well, that's all been very exciting. Security and privacy, maybe not as exciting, maybe a little bit scary sometimes. Security is a balancing act. If we had no users, we'd have great security. If we had no users, we wouldn't need security. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to meet our requirements. We have many very important users. We have people in the public health arena. We have people in the public safety arena where there are strict legal requirements to maintain privacy. We also just have users that have expectations. When someone is using data, they want to be able to control and decide how that data is distributed and where it leaks out to. So security is a very important function, but it's not as exciting as some of the other activities we go on. And frankly, it is my goal to keep us out of the newspaper, to keep us from being exciting. Let's be very low key. We have been steadily increasing our efforts in these areas. We have gone from maybe every couple of years to doing some audits or penetration testing to now we do regular annual audits and penetration testing. And we've also been polling our environment. IT in the county is not completely centralized, so some of it is distributed, and we're now reaching out to our partner organizations and helping them to analyze their security. And that's an important thing that we're doing, and that's something that we look for partnerships on. We've been very happy with the work that we've done recently in this area, but we're big on independent validation and verification. And so just because some vendor helped us with a security audit last year doesn't mean that they're a lock for next year. So that's a very important area. Another topic in that area that's important to us, something we're working on right now and are looking for a solution to, is email encryption. Those same groups that I talked about, the public safety groups and the human services groups, the use of email is pervasive now. I mean, 10 years ago, if you had an email address, you were kind of special, you know, sort of like 15 years ago if you had a pager. Well, now everybody has an email address and everybody uses email for everything. But some of those things have legal or ethical requirements to be kept very confidential. So we're looking into email encryption. Another thing that we're trying to do is to become more proactive. So we have a fairly traditional model for firewall security. We use a layered security model to try to make ourselves less vulnerable. But we are embarked on an initiative today to be more live, more real time in the analysis of our data. So historically, maybe we would notice that firewall utilization was peaking and then we would wonder why, and then we would look into it. Well, our goal is to be more trend oriented, and before firewall activity peaks or before something is going on, that we've already sort of seen the smoke and have jumped on it before we have a fire. My next slide, I think, is on availability and scalability. These two concepts are very closely related. Part of being available is having continuity of operations and you know, not having failures. You know, make sure you have backups and you can do restores and things like that. But another part of being available is being scalable. As Kristan, and you'll hear from Colleen and all, as they roll out these new innovative applications, they need a platform to run them on, and it's not available if I can't scale for them. So that's an important, the two guys are tightly joined together. Also, a better model for availability is to go more active-active versus active-passive. And so you have the capacity on a day-to-day basis, and then you have the diminished capacity but greater availability in case of a disaster. Jit talked about our new network operations center, and he talked about the green, which was one of the leading drivers in the design. But another strong influence in the design was availability and scalability. Talked about the rack space, and it is designed to be a growable space. The racks are taller, the power is greater, the air conditioning is greater, and we're posed to go to much higher density computing. And that will allow us to grow without having to, in 5 years, scrap the NOC. I mean, really the goal of that NOC is to be a long-term investment, not some five-year guy. Talked a little bit about some of the stuff that we're doing. Ajit also mentioned our Dell servers and our Dell storage. They're part of a theme. We try to focus, so we don't want to dilute our efforts by having 6 different versions of the same thing. We had drifted in that way on our storage. We had different kinds of SANs. We had fiber channel SANs. We had direct attached storage. We had local storage and all. And in our network side, we had IP-based networks, and we had proprietary-based networks. We had the mainframe that used SDLC and all. To focus, we are an IP shop. We really are interested in infrastructure that supports IP. So our new architecture for storage is iSCSI, which is running over IP. This allows us to collapse our network further. A couple years ago, we converged our voice and data networks. We had a traditional PBX-based voice network, and it's now all running on IP. This focus allows us to leverage the concepts of availability and scalability. If you make that network infrastructure more resilient, then anything you put on it benefits from that resiliency. So that's an area that we're currently working on. We have ever-increasing needs for bandwidth. Our connection to the internet is growing, and our connection between our sites is growing, and our wireless connectivity is growing. And an important feature, something that is a unique characteristic to the county, is our use of dark fiber. Our facilities, all of our primary facilities are hooked up with dark fiber that is gig or better. Some of it is significantly better than gig. And these demands continue to grow, and we have an initiative going on now that's a telecommunications master plan that is to look ahead, not next year, but 3 years, 5 years, 10 years out, to make sure that we have the bandwidth, the connectivity that the county is going to need for these applications that are data-driven. If you have more and more data, then you need more and more bandwidth to move it around. So that's an important area. And this is an initiative that is just kicking off, and we need significant help in this area. We're pretty clear on what we need to connect because we have points, A, B, C, that all need to be connected. So that's pretty easy. But the operations and maintenance of this infrastructure is something that we don't currently do now, and it's something that we're interested in learning more about. And similar to our cloud-first strategy, we tend to think of as-a-service strategies first. So I am really not interested in getting into the business of maintaining a dark fiber network 24/7, 365. That would be something that we would look for a partnership with. We try to keep things fresh. Kevin talked about our PCs, and we try to keep them fresh. We do the same thing with our servers. Our network is fairly new, but it is always being refreshed. We currently run a fairly traditional Cisco core distribution edge infrastructure, but we've recently been implementing VRFs, if that means anything to you, and MPLS is definitely in our future. And I talked about that dark fiber. Well, there's only so much dark fiber, and so some sort of wave division multiplexing, a DWDM or something like that is probably also in our future. The back-end challenges that we have to availability and scalability are compounded when they're multiplied by the many, many endpoints. And you've met Kevin, and so let me reintroduce him. He's my partner responsible for these areas.
So one of the things, availability and scalability, the last thing you would think about is the desktop. Let's face it, that the monolith that sits beneath your desk just sits there and collects dust most of the time. It is not where users want to be. But what we are looking to do in efforts is virtualization. So we are very interested in pursuing desktop virtualization tied to Windows 7 movement, which like everyone else in the world is going to. We also want to tie it to a remote access, a more robust remote access that will allow our users to connect pretty much from anywhere through any means. While it is, Lou has spent the better part of, exciting security and privacy things that everybody seems to be concerned about. I'm, in some cases, more concerned about transparency, even though I understand the need for security. So we need to make sure that everything we're doing is commercial, it's available, it's not custom if we can do it. We want to lead off with the newer mobile technologies that are both secure. In the news, you'll constantly hear about secure devices or non-secure devices. We are constantly getting pushed for the new technology. So, and in a lot of cases, we have to put on the brakes. So as part of that process is to available what is scalable. I don't want to buy a tablet. I certainly don't want to buy the HP tablet that is no longer available. I wouldn't. We want to make sure that it is something we can support. So availability of new technologies to our users, availability of the desktop anywhere, and the ability to do the job is critical in my interest. Scalability, so can I take my virtualization to run on any platform or even smartphones eventually? How, as much as it's overused, how can I empower these people to do more with new mobile devices and still maintain the best interests of Lou like he has for security? So those are big concerns, and we will need help. We'll need partners with it. They're ongoing initiatives. This is not something that's 3 years out. This is happening today, it'll happen tomorrow, and it'll be continuing every year moving forward. So the only other thing on scalability is management. As we grow, we need to manage our infrastructure. That includes we manage our fixed assets, the PCs, pretty well. I think we do a good job. We know where they're at. They pretty much don't grow legs. We also know that iPads do, mobile devices do. We also need to be very concerned because as we provide these devices in their hands, they're going to store more data on them. More data means we have to be more secure, so we need a tool. And we are currently searching for a tool for mobile data management. And we need to control it. I want a tool that is not only controls the smartphones, but controlling iPads, Android devices, tablets, but will also allow me to reach out and control, support my legacy laptop fleet. All right, and so I think moving on from all of the really interesting hardcore stuff in infrastructure, I'd like to introduce Colleen, which will bring us something a little bit better in productivity.
This is the real fun stuff. My name is Colleen Ryan. I manage the core or back office enterprise applications for the county. I've been here about 6 months, so it's been a pretty challenging period to get myself up to speed. So, as you heard in the past or heard earlier, Oracle is probably our single biggest investment in the core or back office applications. I have the Oracle Financial and e-business suites. I have about 20 modules that my team maintains today. We went live in 2006, and we need to do an upgrade. This will be the first time we've done a significant upgrade. So we're trying to move from 11.5 to version 12.1. In addition to that, we would like to move to version 12.2, but we just recently found out that Oracle will be discontinuing the public sector budgeting module. Before we can go to version 12.2, we have to replace our budgeting module. We will look at the Hyperion tool that Oracle offers, but we are considering anything else that meets our functional needs. So we are in the process of trying to get ourselves up to speed on what the offerings are out there, and we need some help with that. Additionally, we would like to implement the projects and grants functionality within Oracle. I believe we own those modules. It's something that we'd like to look at from an enterprise perspective, not just maybe from a DTS or a DES perspective. And again, we'll need some help with that. That would probably be coming after our upgrade. Outside of Oracle, the county does have GIS functionality. That is something we need to expand. Almost every application that I've been involved with here has asked for some sort of integration into GIS. So we are trying to come up with a strategic plan on expanding our GIS capabilities. we'll need to implement that plan and then integrate GIS across our application suites. Finally, our tax assessment and tax collection systems. Ajit mentioned we have the Gen Tax application, so most of our personal property tax. We are looking to add our real estate application into that mix and kind of integrate that a little more tightly, looking to enhance some of that functionality that we have. That system's fairly dated. It's a combination of off-the-shelf software and custom development, so we will be enhancing pieces of that. We also need to upgrade our Gen Tax application. Again, something that was implemented in 2008. We have done no patches to it. We have done no upgrades of it. We have added enhancements to it. That will be a significant project for us, and we'll be looking for some help to engage and make sure we don't break any functionality, bring over what we do today, and then add the enhancements that version 9 of Gen Tax will offer us. On the collection side of the house, simply we just need to improve our payment channels. We have a web portal, it's called CAP. Our citizens continually tell us ways to enhance that product for them. We need to look at that. Cashiering functionality, point of sale systems. We have some pockets of point of sale across the county. We need to expand that to all points that citizens can access. And finally, we've talked about mobile applications. We need to bring mobile functionality to the capabilities of collections. People sitting at home at night wanting to do it on their iPad or at the coffee shop. Swipe capability is off of an iPhone. So those are things we don't have today that we are looking to enhance and looking for what are the tools out there that we can do to do that. So with that, I think I will hand it back to Christanne to talk about data management.
Excuse me. So information content management, I'm interested in the full life cycle of information. So from the creation, capture, to the versioning of it, to the classification, the indexing, the securing, the accessing, to the eventual either disposition, whether it's the destruction of it or the archival of it. There's 3 general operating principles that we have here. One is that information is an organizational asset of the county. 2 is that in order for us to maximize that information, we need to manage it. And 3, generally there is one owner of the information, but there are multiple recipients of that information, and they want to use it differently. So we need to be prepared to meet all of those expectations. Excuse me. So as Ajit had mentioned, we have 2 enterprise solutions that we're currently using. We have Highlands OnBase software that we've been implementing now for about more than 10 years. We've done a number of process solution improvements, as well as actual records management, actual capturing and indexing. In addition, we're very excited that we are launching SharePoint 2010 on-premise. We have a 2007 pilot environment, but we're in the process now of standing up our 2010 environment, and we will be migrating our pilot environment into 2010. Our primary focus for SharePoint right now is on redesigning and rebuilding our intranet, which is currently on an old Oracle platform, and then building out a collaboration portal. So we're redesigning and providing kind of a one-stop shop for all of our users called AC Workplace for them to come in. The challenge we have is we have 2 excellent tools, SharePoint and OnBase, and we now need to focus on a strategy of how to integrate them seamlessly. There is some overlapping of them, but we want to really develop a strategy that maximizes their strengths and utilizes them for the best purposes, but have it seamless to the users. So going forward, we're interested in really kind of mapping out how best to move forward with these 2 tools. The goal, essentially, better communication internally. Sharing information, we want to create essentially a virtual environment, a knowledge base for all of our users. We want to reduce paperwork, so from a greening perspective, to the extent that we can automate a lot of our functions without having to print out paper copies, that's always a plus. In addition, we want to also be able to promote our remote workforce. So teleworking is an initiative of the county, and to the extent that we can increase the access through mobile devices or working offline through these tools, we want to be able to do so. The other benefit to a lot of the work that we're doing now in this investment is improved customer service, citizen engagement. So to the extent that we can improve the accuracy and the access to relevant information, we're better positioned to be able to pass that information on to our citizens. So the goal of our public website really is to inform, to serve, and to engage our citizens. So from an information perspective, we're very interested in about information being accessible. Again, that gets back to mobility. We want to make sure that regardless of how somebody is trying to access information for the county, that they're able to do it with any device. We're also interested in complying with ADA requirements. So usability from a perspective from anybody. We want to make sure that the experience is useful for them, that we have a very intuitive information architecture in place. And the relevancy and accuracy of the information. We want, to the extent that we can, do a personalization of the user's experience. And make the experience important to them. For services, we want to increase the availability of online services. In particular, we're looking at service request systems where we can facilitate this. And we're also focusing a lot on forms, the automating of forms online. And finally, with citizen engagement, we're interested in creating an effective opportunity for users to participate, whether it's in online chats or blogs, but to create a virtual community where people feel more engaged and it's more of a dual conversation, not just a pushing of information or services in one way. So what are our challenges with this? Well, as again, Ajit had mentioned, our primary website uses Percussion, Rhythmic's software, CMS system, which is a very substantial CMS system, but in reality, it's not a best fit for Arlington County. It requires, there's not a lot of out-of-the-box functionality that we can take advantage of, so it requires a lot of custom development to do what it is we want to do. It also doesn't incorporate a lot of the social networking components that we're really interested in tapping into, in particular as we try to engage our citizens in more of a two-way conversation. So what that has resulted in is the proliferation of a lot of micro websites in the county. And in order to best manage that moving forward, we have created a hosted and managed WordPress environment. And the idea is to provide some consistency with the approach and the theme and the branding of all of our websites, but also keep them integrated thoughtfully. So when a user does a search on the primary site, it will also reach out to all of the microsites, or conversely, if they're on a microsite, it will also trace back to the primary website. So it's a bit of a challenge that we have two very distinct environments. So our focus really is how we can strategically target our investments with the idea that we'll have a new CMS system in 2014. But what can we do now with the tools we have to maximize the investments that we make? And there's two primary areas that we're really looking to do that in. One is, again, the automation of forms. So the extent that we can create processes and allow people to complete an action and submit it online and still have a firm audit trail, that would be beneficial. The other is, in lieu of a 311 system, which the county does not have, we're looking for innovative ways to be able to respond to customer county requests for service, whether it's a fallen tree or a pothole or a traffic light down or whatnot. Again, to create that infrastructure so we can engage and provide a deeper level of service for our citizens. And with that, I'll transition back to Jack on situational awareness.
right. Situational awareness, not something new in Arlington County, something we've been dealing with for a long while. Started in 9/11 when we responded to the Pentagon. I remember sitting around the table with my fire chief and police chief, wondering what would we do if we had to respond to another incident. And frankly, we could not have responded. We were exhausted and we'd exhausted ourselves and our resources. And so identifying resources was critical. But situational awareness has moved further in the last few years from being just purely a public safety issue to being of interest to us as a county. Life safety issue is one thing, also the community itself. Events are taking place in the community. We just don't have that global view, that horizontal view of all activities. While it may work on a vertical level, the police may be able to understand what's happening in their particular area, fire an area, looking across fire, police, health and human services, community and public health, community development and such, and be able to have that information be picked up in the field, sent back in collected, mined, and then presented in sort of a dashboard fashion where we can see what's happening in the community through one source is something that we have a big interest in. And how to do that, and that's a real challenge. It involves a number of pieces. It's the mobile devices out in the field. It's much more than data and voice. It used to be voice was the one thing we lived on, but now it's data and it's video. It's being able to integrate that, being able to put eyes and ears when people are going into buildings. So in-building communications are becoming a critical thing for us now. When we're talking, community housing, public and development are talking about ways that we can create and facilitate those eyes and ears in buildings. So it's more than just voice communications, but it's getting all that information back to us in a central spot. We had a microburst back in July, the 4th of July, just before the 4th of July, that came through Arlington, and it was similar to a tornado. It took much of Arlington out. And in effect, we were trying to respond to that, and then the next day, we were doing the preparations for the 4th of July. And so we had to worry about crowds and that type of thing. Being able to have an understanding of what the issues were, what type of resources we had available both within Arlington County and the region are critical. An event takes place down at the Rosalind subway station, and our people respond and they start coming back. Our public health people are very interested in what's the situation. Not that they've been able to respond, but what's the health of the people responding? As they're coming back, are they able to go to the next event? Are they operational? Are they non-operational? We in Arlington, frankly, are leaders in this area, and I don't say that and trying to be condescending to my partners elsewhere in the federal government, but we've done it, we've been there, and we're really the people that people look at across the country in terms of how do we respond to things like this. So situational awareness is something we're very concerned about, very interested in. We're very concerned about all these little devices we have in the field that are monitoring water quality, traffic signals. They're called SCADA systems, and we're now involved in that heavily. We're very concerned because that's a vulnerability we have in the county, and we want to make sure that the information that's being collected there, again, is being rolled back to a central place where we can basically look at it and be able to understand that, give meaning to it. So that's something we need help, assistance in. And as you've seen in many of the things you've heard today, that very often you've seen a face talk about, and it's something we want to do, but we really haven't given you a solution because we don't know the solution yet. And that's why we're having this meeting. But to any solution we get, we have to manage it well. And what we do, we put a lot of effort and intent in just how we do manage it. So I'd like me to introduce Mary Beth Micah, who's going to talk about just how we do this good governance.
Good morning. I'm Mary Beth Micah, and I'm responsible for strategy and portfolio management. And I hope you've gotten the message this morning that we are a very business-oriented IT organization. Arlington is an unusual government situation, not the stereotype that a lot of people think about. And the way you've heard a lot about what we want to do, and now I want to talk a little bit about how we do that. Taking that business focus, we look for strong management. And as we look at the projects that we have, and we have quite the portfolio, as you've heard, we don't do a lot of really large-scale, complex projects like you would see in the federal government. We're a very nimble organization. And to be able to be nimble and to handle the projects we have and deliver them using what we said up there as smart management, we have to have good governance and control of what we do, but we don't want to impose a very heavy framework that restricts how people do business. So The way we do that, and we look to our customers in both, you've heard, we look for applications and develop applications both for the community, but as an IT organization, we also do have a lot of internal customers. So I would say the two areas where we focus and where we always look for partnerships are tools and people. In order to be able to provide high value, we are a forward-looking organization. We're not looking to develop applications that just mimic the way people that do things today, but also we're also looking at how should we be doing them? How do we think things will happen in the future? So to deliver those kind of solutions, we always want to be looking at, for high value, that means cost-effective, streamlined processes. So in terms of tools, we can always improve. So we look for partnerships in terms of what kind of tools should we use. Again, we are a nimble organization, so we don't want to impose a lot of programs and things that the project managers have to follow and are burdened following. They have processes, but again, what kind of tools can we use to produce those high-value applications without putting a lot of burden on how we do things and slowing down processes. Our customers look for us to deliver things quickly because our citizens do, and that's how we react in our community. The second area are people. We have project managers, and again, we have a large portfolio, and we have everything from very small projects, I would say, to medium-sized projects, maybe a couple large projects. So we look for project managers, and we have, I'd say most of our project managers are contractors, and we look for project managers that are nimble. I use the word agile, not so much in the sense of the project management methodology, but people that can turn on a dime. We throw things at project managers. We have project managers, all our project managers handle lots of different kinds of projects. So it could be today we're going to be working on something that's mass casualty, public safety, public health, and we look for people that have that basic set of skills in terms of project management and the discipline, but it doesn't necessarily matter what kind of projects they're handling. So those are the two areas, I'd say, that we look for partners and are always looking for input and help in terms of how best to deliver what we have and the best processes for delivering it. So now I'd like to introduce Rick Warren, who is a county purchasing agent. We've told you about the what and the how, and he's going to tell you about the nuts and bolts of how to work with Arlington County. Thank you.
All right. Well, so far this morning, you've heard a lot of great ideas and initiatives that the county has, and I'm sure you all are very eager to help provide solutions to the county on how to meet our needs. But the problem is you have purchasing standing sort of in the middle of everybody. And so I'm here to tell you a little bit about the purchasing process in Arlington. And I think that you'll find that the process is set up in a way that it is also nimble, as the technology office is, to be able to meet those needs. We're not actually a decentralized system, as the slide indicates. It's really a process where, a system rather, where the process is decentralized and you have central approval authority by my office. So by and large, the agencies such as DTS handle the specifications, the sourcing, the actual solicitation process, and purchasing approves that process. Anything under $100,000 that we're set up generally by dollar ranges, dollar amounts, dollar thresholds, and everything has to be competitive. Under $100,000, the agencies then go through the process of obtaining bids and come to purchasing for approval. Over $100,000, that's where the purchasing office gets involved in more of a formal process, an RFP, formal invitation to bid, where we go out to our bidders system and send out a notice out to all of the people on our bidder system. Under $100,000, again, competition is required. We're not as restrictive, I guess, as the federal government, but we still have rules to follow. It's basically based on the state code, the levels of procurement or competition that we need. 3 to 6 firms generally for under 100,000, over 100,000. As I mentioned, we go to our bid list. We send a notice out to everyone who's on our bid list, and I'll talk about how to register on our bid list in a minute. Then we get the responses in from firms in a formal competitive process. Each one of the solicitations is very detailed in the instructions that need to be followed, and it's very important that everybody follows all of the instructions that are in the solicitation. We're going to carefully evaluate all of the proposals that we receive to make sure they're compliant with all of the requirements that are in the solicitation. And we will go through a complete process to do that. The county does not accept unsolicited proposals. Everything is going to be done through either an informal process through the agency or a formal process by the purchasing office. We don't accept literature in the purchasing office. And I don't know what Jack's position is in terms of contact with his office, but any contact is really through the department, because the department, again, develops the need, comes to purchasing for purchasing's assistance in those formal solicitations. All right. Next slide. Lately, we've probably done a lot more of the piggybacking of contracts, riding other jurisdictions' contracts. This is a real big part of our operation now, because there really are a lot, especially in the technology area. I think there are a lot of good contracts out there available to us. Again, we have to go through a pretty strict process, though, of riding another jurisdiction's contract. We have to make sure that it meets all of our competitive requirements that we have to follow. We are going to ask every contractor who has a contract with another jurisdiction to execute a rider agreement with us that's going to contain specific terms and conditions for us that apply to our regulations. We have the example of the VITA contracts. I think we have a number of contracts through VITA. Those, even though they're issued by the state of Virginia, we still have to execute a separate agreement with the contractors in each of those cases. And I don't even know why we have this on here, the exemptions to competition, because we want competition. We don't really want any exceptions to competition. But there are cases, clearly, where there is a firm out there that has a very unique technology that we have no choice but to use that firm for maintenance of systems and things of that nature. So we do have provisions in there in our regulations that permit procurement, obviously, without competition. The competition is obviously the way we want to go. We also, I think, have on here the information. This is just something that came up recently, effective July 1. And again, this is where I mentioned earlier, you've got to read the solicitation carefully, make sure you comply with all those requirements. The State Corporation Commission has always required that any firm doing business in the state of Virginia be registered with their office. But recently, the state has imposed on procurement offices to monitor that and ensure that contractors have done that. Just effective July 1, that burden was put on us. So now that's something, again, that's in each solicitation that you're going to be required to register before you can submit a proposal. I bring this up because this is something current, but again, I can't stress enough to very carefully read the solicitation, make sure you can comply with all the county's requirements. I'll also mention, too, another trend that we have recently, in particular in request for proposal. We established mandatory requirements, and we put those in each RFP because, as you can tell by the number of people in the room here, there's a lot of people that are hungry out there. There's a lot of people that want the county's business. And so consequently, a project we might have gotten 10, 15 responses for in the past, we're getting 30 or 40 responses. So we develop mandatory requirements that we put in each solicitation to ensure that we are only looking at firms who meet a minimum qualification standard before we begin evaluation of a proposal. And actually, I'm thinking of actually putting the mandatory requirements in the title of the solicitation. So if you look at it out on our website, you can see whether or not your firm would be able to comply with that or not just by looking at the title. So I just thought I'd mention that. Again, I can't stress enough that you need to really thoroughly read the document, understand what you're getting into. All right, so registering as a bidder, this is how you get on the bid list that I keep talking about. You go to our website, the Bain County website, with the /purchasing at the end of the URL. You can go in there. There's a link to register as a bidder. You need to select a commodity code that covers the general area of goods or services that you provide. I always tell people to register for any commodity that might even be related to technology, in your case, because we may have a construction project, for example, that has some kind of a technology component to it, in which case you'll want to be aware of any construction projects that come up, comb through them and see if there's anything in there where you may be able to team up with a general contractor to help provide a solution. After you register as a bidder, what our system does is notifies everyone who has a valid email address. They get a one-page notice that provides the information on how to download that solicitation. You can download it right from the website and begin preparing your response. You're obviously responsible for not only ensuring that your email address is current, but any of your information is current. This system, and Colleen, I don't think mentioned sourcing. iSourcing is one of the modules in our Oracle system, e-procurement system that we're developing, but because we've already installed it, we already have it, set up, but we haven't really implemented it fully. When we do, eventually, this bidder system will be replaced with iSourcing, the product from Oracle. But it'll function essentially the same. Okay, is that it? I think that's it. I'm going to turn it back over to Jack here to kind of wrap things up.
Thank you, Rick. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope you've gotten a face now of who we are and what we're thinking of. And I know one of the first things you're probably thinking about is, are they really serious about all this stuff? Are they really going to do all these things? Yep, we're trying to do them. And what it's going to require is us to do the homework to get the business case developed that says this makes sense to do, and then justification to get it done. But we're not unlike any other IT organization. The more things you do, and we've done a lot of things, creates a sustainability issue and a capacity issue. You got to sustain what you build, and you have to build the capacity to do new things. Well, how do you do that? What Ajit touched on earlier, and I want to make sure we emphasize it again, is that we're looking at any and all ways we can create capacity. So platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, software as a service are all things we're looking at, because the more capacity we can create, the more things we can do above what we're now sustaining. So that's critical. The other thing Rick touched on, and I want to end on a negative note, but I think you need to understand this. Arlington and county are really an oxymoron. If you think we're a county government, we don't operate that way. And sadly, regrettably, we've had folks who've come in here and said, well, we did this for such and such county and it was okay for them. So why isn't it okay for you? It's because we expect a lot more out of you. Some people may think we're difficult to deal with, but when we enter a partnership, it is truly a partnership. We're going to live up to our side of the bargain, and we are going to hold you to your side of the bargain, and we're going to expect you to deliver. Because in the end, we look at it as we are the stewards of the county's citizens' money, and we want to make sure it's well spent. But saying that, and I don't want to end it a negative thing, I think it's been hopefully, it's been an opportunity for you to hear who we are, see who we are, and again, I'll emphasize, we really tried to stay away from saying we know we have an answer, now we're trying to find a problem. But we're trying to tell you, these are the problems we have, and we're open to hear what kind of answers it may be. So I'm going to turn it over to Ajit, who's going to coordinate any questions you may have, and I'll ask my folks who talk to be ready to come up and answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, Ms. As you will hear from others also, that we are not a typical county IT organization. We do things differently. We are fairly dynamic and open. We are very open to ideas. So that's what we will appreciate. To contact us, you have our email addresses, but please do not send us mass email type of things. We appreciate that. It really doesn't help. We appreciate email communication more than voicemail. Phone communication until we establish a need for us to really talk. So that's what we will appreciate. You will find this presentation. I hope you took good notes, because these golden words will not be repeated again. But, but if you did not, then you did not lose anything. You will find this presentation today, but in 3-4 days, you will have the presentation with notes. So you will be able to pick up from that thing. Also, this event has been recorded, so you will have a streaming video presentation from this site also. Having said that, I would like to open the floor for general questions, and after we have done with the general questions and answers, you will be able to talk to individual directors in this room, with Christine in this corner, Colleen in this corner, Kevin in that corner, Lou in that corner, myself, Mary Beth, and our Mark Levine, budget officer, in the center. So I will open the floor, please.
I can talk about it.
Okay.
Very simply, I didn't see any indication about small business or emphasis on any small business contractors. Is there anything like that for the company?
Yes, I can cover that. Our SWAM business, small women and minority-owned business program is really more of an outreach program. We don't have set-asides or quotas or any type of goals that we need to achieve. We do that through working with minority workshops, through COG, and through the Arlington Economic Development. And we also try to design our solicitations in a way that affords opportunities for the smaller, the disadvantaged firms, if you will. The other thing is we try to encourage firms to team with other larger contractors, and so we provide avenues for doing that as well. We have our entire minority policy is on the website under the purchasing page of the website as well.
Two questions. One for purchasing. Have you developed any kind of e-bid process? Electronic bid submissions?
That's actually part of the sourcing solution that I mentioned earlier. We have not done that yet. We're as advanced now as you see. You're putting the solicitations out on the website and allowing people to download. Nothing beyond that, though.
Any plans in the immediate future for e-bids?
I can't tell you the exact timeline for the sourcing solution, but that will be a fully automated e-procurement system that'll allow us to receive electronic bids and create catalogs and so forth, and really start to take advantage of our system, our Oracle system.
Second question is a little more general, I guess, for Jack. Are there any formal process to consolidate common functions between the school and the county?
There are. We have a joint county schools technology collaboration group, and what we're doing is open mic. Anybody hear me? Yep. And so we're meeting on a regular basis. We're identifying areas that we can work closely together. It makes a lot of sense to do things together. and we're looking at everything from networks to telephones to different types of the whole back office PRISM type thing. We call it PRISM. It's our financials, our ERP. We're looking at that. So we're continually looking at ways that we can consolidate.
Tim Abdullah, JMT Technology Group. Are you guys currently underway on a geospatial strategic plan? Is that being underway today?
Can you hear me? We are in the very infant stages of trying to figure out what that model may look like.
Hi, Derek Johnson, Dept. You guys mentioned that the purpose of this meeting was to sort of identify some general problems that the county was having, and I know you said that you couldn't really talk about what specific solutions you were looking for because that was part of the process of this meeting is finding out. To that end, are there any plans on the part of the county to release RFIs for any of these issues or problems, and kind of what can we expect coming down the pipeline?
The part of the process we go through, once we have we cannot go out and solicit anything until we have a funding stream established. So that's one thing we have to follow. Once we have a fund plan for investing in an IT project, then we can decide whether we go out and solicit RFI, which may give us a better understanding of what we are looking for. Sometimes we do that. Or we can go with the formal RFP process. But if, as you saw in Rick's presentation, was that if the amount we are estimating is less than 100K, then we can go with a statement of work and project deliverables and those things, and we can reach out to the staff, to the vendors and on the bidder list. So that's how we do it.
Don Marzullo, Thompson, Cobb, Bazillion Associates. I noted that you said that you encourage teaming. And I'm just wondering, with respect to small and disadvantaged businesses, how you really encourage that if, in fact, there are no mandatory requirements or it's not captured within the evaluation criteria. So try to get a better understanding of how you actually encourage teaming.
Yeah, what I meant in terms of encouraging teaming is through our outreach effort. When we talk to small businesses, we discuss that approach with them. And in fact, in economic development, the workshops we do with economic development, they actually connect small businesses with larger firms, not only for local government like Arlington, but also through federal government opportunities. And we're part of that effort. The other thing, too, is that I think that, I'll give you an example of construction project. When we pre-qualify for a construction project, we don't just issue a solicitation to the pre-qualified firms. We send it out to the entire bid list, knowing that we have small subcontractors who would be interested in finding out about this opportunity, so they can contact GCs and to become part of their team. So it's small things like that too that we're always aware of the impact to small businesses and trying to encourage their opportunities in ways like that.
Paul Turner from Rico Production Print. I didn't hear anything at all about ink on paper for forms or anything like that. Do you have any initiatives, or are you working on anything for either print reduction or new technology in that area?
Forms and those things? Oh, yeah, yes. We have a lot of things going on for internal productivity and efficiency improvements, which are really focused on the paper forms, digitization of paper records and those things. And we have a fairly well-established program, which is Enterprise Records Management Program, which handles some of those aspects. And maybe Christian can tell more about what we are working in that area.
I think one of the things we also were doing is, we're faced with the same problem everybody is in terms of electronic printing. I mean, in the baseline of it. How do you facilitate someone walking into a public facility and they have an iPad and they they want to print something. How do you do it and collect the money for it? Because we do fee-based print. And that's a challenge. We've been using, we frankly took the e-print that HP had, which is not a business quality solution, put it in there. We have a manual processor actually in our libraries. Somebody comes up with sends a document to an address in the internet, and then someone waits to print, and they go over and collect the money. And that is not the way to do business. So if you have any solutions in that area, we'd be really interested in it as well. Christiane, you want to talk about the bigger picture?
Sure. I guess we're approaching it in a few different ways. One is in an enterprise approach in focusing really on managing the creation of content at the very beginning and how best to manage it moving forward. Once content is actually created, we work in targeted initiatives with individual departments because everybody's motivated by something very different. Oftentimes, you're not going to see a large return on your investment when you invest in records management, so you need to be motivated by other reasons. So whether it's DHS and they're motivated by HIPAA compliance or whatnot, we work with that. So we have done a number of solutions where we do digitize records and store them long-term for archival purposes. We are also targeting individual departments as well because our lines of business are so different and varied. We are taking it on an individual basis. We are for example, with the Community Housing Planning and Development Division, we are in the process of creating a strategy and a file management plan for them. And part of that is to review what, if anything, we should be doing with the actual disposition of records, because right now we hold on to everything, and is that the correct policy? But the next is, what is the actual format we should retain that information in? Should it be paper? Is that the most appropriate? Or should it be digitized or fiched or whatnot? So we do target it, and we're doing it within each of our individual lines of business.
Yeah, to add that, in terms of reduction of the printing of paper itself, last year we made an implementation which was for our camp registration process. We changed the process so that we could eliminate the submission of paper forms. So we did online forms and workflows and those kind of things. So we continue to identify opportunities depending upon the business needs and then come up with those proposals. But it's a big focus. County board chairman, Mr. Zimmerman, has a very specific objective: is how can we really eliminate the paper forms on the county website so that people don't have to really print it and mail it to us. So that's one of the direction we have been given, and we are working in that direction. So.
Earlier about GIS, geographical, geospatial. So I don't think we probably answered that to the extent you wanted on that. GIS, Information Systems, is very important to us, and we have followed the history of how we produce maps and geographical type of things. So every time we had something to do as regards to geographical print, we went to our GIS department and they printed it for us, right? So they became the repository of all our information in terms of how the county looked, in terms of layers and street maps and that type of thing. The problem is the world's changed, and it's really the other way around now. We're trying to pull the sock inside out. And what we want to do, and maybe Colleen can talk to this a little bit more, is the fact we want to be able to look at an address and be able to have all the geographical information associated with it brought up. We're not there yet. And so it's that change, that transformation that's taking place. But GIS folks are saying, well, geez, we did this all the time, so why are our maps wrong? And we're saying because people are not interested in your map as a map. They're interested in being able to tap on a spot and know, where's the nearest Starbucks? Where do I go here? That near-field communication thing that touches on something that both Colleen and Christiane are working on are really critical to us. So I think that's something that we really have to get a better understanding. And somebody else asked about RFIs. Are there RFIs out there? We are certainly, we have in this meeting to tell you some of the ideas we have, but we're continually searching. The RFI process, we certainly will follow as we get to the critical point, tipping point, where we really need to get that more information. This is one of them, I think, Colleen. I know you're at that point. And I think, you were down that road as well in this area. But things like that. The idea of this process here is to have that valuable connection, that communication, where you say, we're interested in, you talked about this, we think we have a solution. We just went down, a number of us went down to the Gartner Exposition in Florida, and we go through their expo where there are thousands of folks there selling products, and we come up and somebody asks, well, you're just here to get the Chotsky we have, the bubble ball that bounces, is that why you're here, to get your card scanned? And we'll say, no, actually, we have an interest. And so what I would do, and what my guys would do, is go to the particular person and say, look, I know you're scanning our card, and I know you're going to send me a mailing back, but I really am interested in what you're doing here and what you've talked about. I need you to distinguish that by saying, is that this thing? You mentioned that. I think I can help you with this. And just from that conference alone, walking the floor, we've picked up another of folks who, I'm not saying we're going to do business with them. As Rick would say, you can't do business until you put something on the street and it's fair competition. But certainly having a conversation is so helpful. Because I'll tell you right now, we do not have the answers to these questions. We have ideas. And I don't want to make decisions that are not being in the best interest of the county. So if there's a better idea out there, and it might mean that we do things entirely different, we're open to listening.
Thank you. Sagar Sawat from Sequent. First of all, Jack, let me thank you for having this forum. This is the third year that I've come here, and I haven't seen other counties do similar outreach sessions of informing their vendors of the IT initiatives going on. It certainly helps to have such an open dialogue. So thank you for that. My question is, someone mentioned that you need tools and people. I think it was Mary Beth. And in terms of people, a lot of your project managers are contractors. When you are looking for purely people with certain skills, like a project manager, and it's not tied to an initiative of an Oracle upgrade or so on, you just want to go out and get people. What's your process of doing that?
Well, I'll let Mary Beth talk to the process, but I tell you something I'm looking for, and we continually say this, we want an ownership. That project manager comes in. See, and I'm not trying to criticize my colleagues across the river, but I came from that side of the river. And it's, a project manager on that side of the river and a project manager in this organization, two different animals altogether. I mean, we expect a project manager to come in, understand the problem, take ownership, and drive the solution, not defer to a government FTE who then will make the decisions. We want that person to take that ownership. But how do we find those people, Mary Beth?
Tell you about the process. We have a staff augmentation contract, and that is a pre-qualification for the vendors who could provide just the resources in different categories, project management, software development, on-base skills, or whatever we have in the list. That is one way for us to really go out and whenever we have a need, we prepare a statement of work. It's irrespective of a project, but it will describe what kind of projects that person will be engaged into. And we send out SOW to all the pre-qualified vendors in the staff augmentation contract. And then we receive resumes, we interview, and we finalize. Any request which goes out, as I said before, must be funded. So we simply don't send out requests seeking resumes. So we only reach out to you when we have a need and we have a funding stream established. I will let Mary Beth explain what kind of people we look for and how we really evaluate them.
Thanks, Ajit. When we look for project managers, as Ajit said, we have projects that are already lined up and funded. And what we do is when we have a statement of work, but we actually create a job description, and we put in there specifically what kind of project management skills. We have a standard job description for project managers of what the responsibilities and expectations are, but also we then craft an introduction for the specific area, because it could be infrastructure, it could be applications. We have project managers handling all different areas. When a project manager comes in, as Jack said, it is an ownership, and we have something in place that not just talks about responsibilities for project managers, but also our expectations. We have a list of expectations, and it is very different from the federal way of doing things because, as I mentioned before, we're very business-oriented, and we have projects that are very business-oriented. So it's not large, complex projects with huge budgets that go on and on and on. We have time limits, and frameworks in place where we expect people to deliver, and we're very strict on how we run those projects.
Hi, I'm Michael Weisberg from Global Technology Solutions. I'm one of those crazy people that someone referred to whom the information security and privacy stuff is actually exciting. My question is, how is best to reach out to the county as an organization to look at the overall processes of information security and assurance, risk management, IV&V, and continuous monitoring? And also, how do we integrate that into project life cycles as opposed to have it be something that's done as an evaluation later on in the process?
Okay, let me cover this briefly at a very high level. Ms. Reaching out to us, you have my contact information. You know the security is in Lou's area. There's one way of reaching out to us is that, okay, I have some ideas in terms of the information security, or you would like to find out what are the details, things we are doing in information security. We can establish a dialogue, and you can reach out to us. And so that could be the starting point. Depending upon if we do have need, then we will say, oh, yes, we would like to talk about this thing. If we don't, then we'll say, okay, for time being, we are not looking into this area. Thank you, but we will keep you in mind. So that's one way. If there are any specific needs right now, Lou may be able to tell you more about that one.
Yes. Well, the point you bring up is very important to us. So we have a Chief Information Security Officer. We have a Security Operations Group, and those are all very important. But the point you made about integrating the concepts into the projects from the beginning, this is the old, it is easier to keep the horse in the barn than it is to round up the horse. And so we are very interested in that. And reach out to us, and we can talk.
General questions, then I will say that if you would like to talk in detail to other directors, then please stay. Christian in this corner, Colin here, Kevin on that corner, and Lou there, and I will be here. Thank you. Thanks for coming.